everyone to this very interesting session. The topic that we have for today's discussion is self, and self as an instrument, which is, we know it's, an inner work, which is difficult, but that is what we are going to talk about today. Joining me today is Balaji G, who is from ABB. He's the Senior Vice President, Energy Division. And we were just talking that Balaji is very soon going to complete 3 decades in ABB. Welcome, Balaji.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Smita.
Thank you. And we have Nanda Kumar, who is the Global HRBP. And Nanda is almost a decade old at ABB. So we have like veterans of the company joining us, and we'll get to hear some great nuggets from them. Welcome, Nanda.
Thank you, Smita. Always pleasure to be here.
Yes. It feels home for you, right? Coacharya.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. So as we start this discussion, I want to ask the participants a question, and then maybe Nanda and Balaji, you can share too, which is about what is that one phrase that we tell ourselves, maybe, every day or multiple times in a day, which helps us to drive our leadership. What is that one phrase that you tell yourself? Request you to put it on the chat. Balaji, would you want to share?
Probably those who work with me know quite very well. I often talk about it. For me, perseverance is of high importance. I value this as one of the most important skill. And to put it in 3 words, it's called never say die. That's my sort of a motto, I would say. I would want to keep trying, not give up so easily. So never say die.
Never say die. Okay. Thank you. Nanda, what about you?
For me, it's probably, don't think this as I have a very high attitude kind of, but I always believe, and I always keep telling this to myself, that if one can do it, I can do it. If one can't do it, then I have to do it. That's something which always keeps me motivated, that there's nothing that's impossible.
Lovely. Sounds very, very interesting. And you will also read some, interesting comments up here on the screen in the chat. Show up every time. Sorry, I can't read the full thing. However you are. It's amazing. Being reliable. Thank you, AG. Encouraging team members. Are you the best version somewhere? I think I read that of yourself today, that question, right? Are you the best version of yourself today? Ramakrishna, thank you for that. Ram Kumar.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, Smita, I joined late. Can you just let me know what the question is?
Yes. So the question is, what is that one phrase that you tell yourself maybe, every day or multiple times in a day, which helps you in your leadership?
Thank you.
And so mine is, I'm just using this Hindi phrase and I'm going to say that in English, which is about ho jayega. That means, I'll work through it. It'll be done. I think that helps me to stay grounded and saying that, everything is achievable. All right. So determination and result orientation, amazing. As I think more, it is gratitude. I totally agree with you, Vinita. I think the gratitude is never enough, right? How much gratitude can we have is never enough. So thank you for a reminder on that. So let's start with our discussion, and just to set a stage for us with this topic of self as an instrument. So today's conversation, it's really a dialogue and a conversation. It's no lecture, and it's really not about leadership techniques. It is about that leader behind the leadership. And this phrase, which is self as an instrument, it is so simple, yet we know how demanding it is, right? Before we lead systems or before we lead teams, it is the focus on ourselves, which has to be on a recurring basis. And our fears, our emotions, our emotional patterns, the assumptions that we make, the ego that all of us have, the awareness, all of that really enters the room before any strategy does. Yeah, I'm sure all of you agree with me on this. So today we are going to explore how leaders really become aware of themselves. What do they really do on a daily basis to work on that inner leadership, and how self-awareness can also impact the collective awareness and the leadership impact. And we'll check with Balaji and Nanda in terms of what do you really do to with you as that instrument for transformation. We all know personal mastery is really not something which is which we can possess once and for all. It's really a process. It is a process. So with that, Balaji, let me start, this conversation by checking with you in terms of what do you really mean by, self as an instrument? What does this mean for you?
Yeah, firstly, thanks again, Smita and Coacharya for having me here. And I want to start off with this statement with a caveat that I'm neither a practicing leadership coach nor a qualified HR to talk about organizational development. But then, from my view perspective, one thing which I've realized is as you go up in a hierarchy, your direct contribution to work reduces in the same proportion. And it is extremely important that you get the things done the way it is required by the company in a certain fashion, upholding certain values. And it's all about, if you ask me how I approach is probably three: trust, clarity, momentum is what I would tell. And if you closely look at how do you build trust, it's all about being transparent. It's also about being reliable. It's also about being predictable. And in many ways, I feel that many things are given as a feedback, but more than the feedbacks, there are so many things that are untold. And I think as a leader, it is for the leader to really find ways to look at what's not been told very clearly. So for me, strategies and action apart, I feel that a lot of your person, even the way you walk in, whether your head is high, whether your shoulders are out and not drooping, everything is watched. If you have 100 people reporting to you, there are 200 ears listening and 200 eyes, watching. You need to be conscious about it. You need to be extremely clear, and that's exactly I would say in terms of clarity, how well you communicate, how well you understand what's being communicated is understood in a what fashion. I think there's a lot to it, and for me, personally, from my childhood, I would say, because of certain influences that I've had in my school, I always believe that self is never a singular; it is actually two. That is, for me, it's about the conscious Balaji and the subconscious Balaji, and self is, for me, is the subconscious one. What you do consciously is good, but I believe the power of subconscious mind is much more powerful. And then you need to teach your subconscious mind how to make a few things in habit. So it's about it's a very powerful tool, I would say. It's about understanding your own self, It is understanding your values and how well you communicate the values and how well you act on your values, and that is extremely important as you go up as a leader and as a manager, I would say, Smita.
Thank you, Balaji. So you're talking about more like, in coaching, we say self one, self two. It's like you're conscious and you're subconscious, and there are few things that you're doing deliberately to take it to your subconscious.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And we'll ask more questions there to, deep dive into that. Nanda, what is your take on what do we mean by self as an instrument?
Definitely for me, a little to contrast what Balaji said, I'm both leadership coach and I'm from HR. Where for me, when I hear self as a instrument, I think of a leader not just as someone applying the leadership skills, but as a medium through which the leadership actually happens, right? And we often say in our function that the intervention is effective only to the extent the instrument is tuned, and that's exactly what applies to leadership as well. And from my experience, partnering with different leaders, with senior leaders, locally, globally, I've seen competencies like strategy, execution, and influence, which absolutely matters, no doubt about that. But who the leader is under pressure matters even more, right? And their self-awareness, the emotional regulation that they have, and as Balaji rightly touched upon, the values, how they are going to bring their personal values aligned with the organizational values, some of the assumptions that the environment is shaped in which people think, in which people decide, and in which people perform, right? And for me personally, self as an instrument also means the recognizing that my mindset, my biases, my ego, as you quoted earlier, Smita, and my inner state are always at work, whether I'm facilitating a tough talent discussion, challenging a leader, or holding space during a change that's happening, right? I'm not just a neutral observer, I'm part of the entire system as an instrument. And as leaders grow more senior in the organization hierarchy, in the organization levels, the impact of that unexamined behavior scales up quite high, and a moment of defensiveness can just shut down the dialogue. The calm presence can create psychological safety. The curiosity can unlock smart decisions. So inner work, inner reflections, the feedbacks, noticing our triggers, and that's something how the core leadership works. And ultimately, self as an instrument reminds me that sustainable leadership, the impact it brings, the alignment when intentions, behaviors, and presence are congruent is when the inner uh, instrument, the organization feels it through trust, through energy, and through performance. So whole in whole put together, that's what self as an instrument means to me.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I know that you absolutely talk coach like, and Balaji earlier said he's not coach. I've seen him in action, and he's more than a coach in action. So
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So coming to you're talking about competencies like both of you said trust. Balaji said clarity, and Nanda, you're talking about congruence. So, in when we look at leadership, there is an expectation, like Balaji said, right? Like 100 people reporting, and you need to show up in a particular way. And you have these competencies, which we, in a way, through experience, through theory, we learn that these competencies are needed. But when reality happens, when there is, pressure of work, when there are targets to meet, what are some of the challenges that you, as the self, the leader and the self faces? What are some of the challenges? Balaji, could you like to go ahead first?
So, after having said what I have said earlier, Smita, I also want to qualify that it's much easier said than done. And I think you have to do it deliberately. You'll have to do it consistently and persistently until it gets into a habit. And it's not going to be easy. There are challenges that comes up across. So one of the easiest or the most common one challenge you would say is how do you make people think the way you think? It's not that what you think is the right way, but then as a group or as a team, you set certain expectation of certain behavior, certain values, and then you want that to come automatically without being told. Handling stress is another extremely key aspect, and I would say it's also an important and it's one of the challenges as well, because once you are in a leadership position, you have the responsibility to deliver a certain result. And I would say that the test of character comes in difficult times. In normal times, you talk, everything is hunky-dory, everything goes as per plan. But I think what is important is in those difficult times, are you able to stick to the same teachings that you preached in the past? I think that makes an impact. And if you do it repeatedly, then the trust of the team builds up. The team believes that it's not just about a talk, and there are several instances that has happened. The other one is how much transparent you can be, because there are two things: honesty and transparency. Honesty is a place where I would say you are asked a question and then you're replying honestly. Whereas on the other hand, transparency is coming off stage, and so honesty is a reflection of the burden of questioning lies with the receiver or the opponent, or a person who's standing opposite to you. Being transparent is how we're able to communicate without being asked. Of course, as a leader, you can't be transparent about everything. There are certain things but overall, if you're going through a difficult times, I think it's extremely difficult, because there are multiple things to it. How will it be perceived? Whether that will give a negative connotation. How do you change the way you communicate so that people are able to see the things as they are, see the things from a higher sort of a level. I think there are quite a few challenges, and the other one is things you allow somebody to take a decision which is exactly what we want to do, and that decision does not come up to an expected result, and that does as well happen. Whether you are able to have the stomach to digest it and then give a positive feedback rather than trying to find fault. I'm not saying that I'm good at everything. There have been multiple places where consciously we have worked, or I have worked in standing up for the values. Extremely proud of both my individual decision and the reflection that came subsequently with the team members able to stand up for those values which are very close to our company, I would say. There are also been instances where I have also picked up a fault, even though it was a decision to allow others to take a decision. So I think what's more important is, as somebody said, that am I a better version of today? I think as a group, this is what we decide within energy industries. How do we don't want to run run a race or a competition against others. I just want me and my team to say that are we the better version of what we were yesterday or last year, and be on a journey of continuous improvement. This is what I would put. It's quite challenging. There are several challenges. It's absolutely okay that you're not coming up trumps against each challenge, but then what's important is to understand that there is a better way to communicate, there is a better way to give a feedback, there is a better way to handle yourself in a particular situation. And when that situation happens in future, whether this recollection comes at that time and then you make a change there. That's what is important, Smita, in my view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of, deliberation. It's not like it's easily accessible, but there is a lot of deliberation that you as a leader need to constantly keep at it and consistently do so that, you and your team benefit from whatever you're intending to achieve.
Absolutely. I think many times I end up talking to myself without other people noticing it. But then it's as simple or as tough as that. How well are you able to reflect on a situation within yourself about is it done right, or is there a better way to do that thing, especially when when you're dealing with people, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And you also spoke about transparency, Balaji, and I can understand as a leader, right? Like that is about for me to build that trust with the team, but who defines what can be covered in that transparency, right? Who defines that? And
No, I
that can
think
be challenging.
it can be challenging, but as a leader, I feel that there are certain things that you need to say. If you're not doing well, there's no point in trying to come up on stage and say that everything is fine. I think it's important to for the team, the entire team, to realize exactly where you are. I can probably relate to some decisions that we have done. For some portion of time, we were keeping away from certain segment. But I thought that there are two ways to do it. We keep away the segment and not communicate to people, or we go up on stage and say that this is the reason that we don't want to do it, and then we turn around this, and possibly in a future time we review this and then turn it up. When we went on stage, it had it had impacts, it had repercussions. But then I would say that there are a lot of team members that understood and stuck with us, and today we are back doing same things that we said that we will keep away. And the team is much more stronger, much more convinced about how not to do certain things. And that's the best learning as a team, I would say, that we could learn. You can preach, or you can let the team understand that certain things have to be done in a certain fashion. That is an expectation. But then you make people realize why it is important. Instead of telling what to do, the whole idea is to make them realize in the whole conversation why certain things is more important than what is to be done. What is to be done is the most easy thing that can be done. Every manager tries to tell that do this and do that. But I think it's important to step back, and then while what to do is sometimes has to be told, but you can shift the conversation to say why is that important. And if that realization comes with the team, I think the job is done.
I think that's a very, very pertinent point to align with the why of the job. So
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you, Balaji. Nanda, from your, what is your take on what are some of the challenges that one faces as a leader while we are working on self, but the reality is that challenges keep coming up.
No, absolutely. And agreed with all the points that Balaji mentioned. For me, when I reflect on moments where I myself became a challenge, it's often less about behavior in isolation and more about the role I play in the system, in the organization. Right? There have been moments where my intent was to support the leader, support the business, but my positioning unintentionally sometimes creates dependency. For example, stepping in too quickly with answers, with frameworks, with policies, with best practices, instead of staying in that zone of appreciative inquiry. What is the meaning of this, right? And I becoming the part of the problem. I end up trying to solve the problem rather than understanding it. That definitely becomes a challenge for me as a leader. And quite a few examples, Smita, on this I have. Another moment that I notice is when when my comfort zone was limited to harmonize the impact that was supposed to be created, in a complex talent or the transformation conversations that we have, choosing alignment over healthy tensions sometimes delay the real work. And in those moments is when my avoidance becomes the constraint, right? Where the intention is very pure, intention is very best, but I myself become a challenge without understanding the impact the intention is going to create,
Mm,
right? And there have always been situations where I feel like I have to carry the weight of being the integrator, trying to hold enterprise perspective, the regional realities because of the role that I am in, and all the
mm,
leadership expectations which all come at once, right? And where do I stand? At the center of it. And the beauty of it is not to work from one direction of it, or one choosing one element of it, but then how I as a person, I as an instrument will harmonize with everything that's coming my way, right? And when I wasn't clear about boundaries, I started observing too much, and the impact was my ability to challenge things effectively. So for me, becoming the challenge often shows up as over owning, over accommodating, over functioning, right? And the learning has been that effective partnership isn't about being always helpful all the time, but it's about being
mm,
conscious of how your presence, how my presence, how my choices, and the comfort zones that we are in shape the approach. And that awareness is exactly what self as an instrument brings into life, that the understanding of how I work is as impactful as how I contribute. So that's some examples of my challenges, I becoming a challenge myself, and some of the learnings for me to overcome that.
mm. Yeah, very well said. So it's more like, what I'm hearing is sometimes our own strengths, when it is overextended, it comes in our way, right? Like you're talking about, um, having the right intent, but avoiding, ha wanting for harmony and avoiding conflict, right?
Yeah,
And this really is something about for us to be constantly knowing that how am I coming in my own way?
very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Um, Coaches, leaders, what are you becoming aware of, your own challenges with self, right? Like which comes in your way, like how Nanda was sharing and earlier, Balaji's. These are the challenges, but you become a hurdle for yourself. Please do share on the chat as to what is your reflection of about yourself. What are
So,
some of your strengths which when extended, comes on your in your way. Yeah, sorry, Balaji, go ahead.
Smita, I was just reading the chat, and one of the sort of
Yes.
reflection was how easy is it for a leader to do to show up every time that way. I just want to reflect a bit on that, and possibly, I'm not sure it's truth or not, but then that this story sometimes I keep reminding myself when the 9/11 happened. It was around midday or early, or not early morning, but morning or midday that this happened. And at that exact moment, when the planes crashed at the Twin Towers, George Bush was spending that morning with a group of kindergarten students in a nursery school, and somebody just walked up to him and then said that this thing has happened, and his response was to continue with what he was doing, sitting with the kindergarten students. I mean, they had probably no power or against the most powerful, a person on the earth. But then he thought that it was important for him that he spent that time with him rather than trying to stop anything abruptly, and then the whole he's the most important person, and then they'll whisk him away to safety. But then he decided to continue with that session and then go out and then take stock of what's happening. And I think it's a very inspiring, incident. If such a critical thing could be handled in such a fashion, I think the problems that we face as leaders are much lesser, I would say, Smita.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder of the story. I had heard it long back, and this again brings back to be, learning from that story to say that in moments of challenge, in moments of, stress, how do we tune into ourselves? Like, what would have been that question at that moment George Bush would have asked himself, right? Like, I'm sure the thoughts would have been to just leave everything and show up somewhere else, but to taking that decision to continue there, what would have been that self-tuning that would have happened in the moment? There is another point here, which is a challenge is when me knowing myself too well becomes a hurdle. I think this again, right? Like, so if we know ourselves too well, it almost becomes like a cast on stone and feels like, this cannot be changed. This cannot be rewritten. Nanda, anything in
No, it
response
definitely
to?
can be rewritten, and that's what I've been continuously doing as well. And I've been navigating through that. I know myself too well. I do self-reflections as what Balaji said as well. Sit in a room and see what has happened throughout the day. And then some of the mistakes, like I said, the intentions are pure, but then the impact it creates is different. And when that happens is when I sit and I write down. And Smita, you know this well. I have a yellow book, which my team calls as the Golden Book of Secrets, where I sit and write down that this is what I did in the day when I journal. And then I never would repeat that. I never would repeat that. When I know that this is what I am, this is a challenge that I am facing or posing, then how can I fine tune myself? What are some of the things that I need to be sure of, that I am going there with intent, keeping the impact in the mind. So it definitely becomes hurdle most of the times, but definitely we can definitely challenge ourselves and make sure that it's no more I am no more a challenge to others. And then again, ask yourself as to, is that your assumption or is it true? You know yourself, yes, but at the same time, are you thinking about yourself, putting that circumference for yourself, or do you want to break that and move
Are we
out of
losing?
that comfort zone? So yeah.
Sorry, Nanda. I don't know if it was just me, but last one line I could not hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We missed you the last 15, 20 seconds, Nanda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was only mentioning that showing up yourself when you know that you're a challenge, and assuming, are you assuming yourself that you're being a challenge, or you know too well about yourself? Then challenge those assumptions for yourself and come out of that cocoon that you are, that you have put for yourself as a circumference, that I know myself too well. I can be challenged. Yes, good. But then what is the counter for that? So that's a coaching self-coaching stuff, which we can definitely do.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful question. Is it an assumption or is it a fact?
Yeah.
Yeah. Balaji, you had a point to share?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
And Vinita puts a very interesting message there. Holding a paradox, I think, in us is a great form of intelligence. Thank you. Thank you for all the responses here on the chat. Empathy turning heavy on me. That again, something Balaji also, I think Nanda also agrees with that. Moving on to, in a way, Nanda, I think you segued when you said that golden book and, for you in terms of how and what do you really do and every day, right? It's not like an event. You work on yourself. You're constantly working on yourself. So and Balaji, I know for the role that you have, very stressful, and it's like, you're constantly at it, right? What is it that you do maybe on a daily basis to develop that self? Like, what are you doing on a daily basis?
So one of the things that I learned much early while starting in my career, which my then seniors used to talk. I actually joined in sales, but then I just spent 1 year. But then what we were provoked to think is good reason and a real reason. I was always taught to look at whatever is the other person saying, is it good or real? And I think that gives the thought process is sort of aligned to that. I always, when we talk, the other thing which one of my colleagues used to regularly talk in ABB, though he's not here at this point of time in ABB, he used to sort of challenge me. He said that, look, Balaji, you have to understand why people talk and behave the way they talk and behave. So these are few things which I'm, unfortunately for me, I'm also, there is a natural, self. One of the natural self that I have is also, I want to be sort of, understanding or putting yourself in other people's shoes. I think one of the very key aspect in either problem resolution or finding a way out is to put yourself in other people's shoes, and then look at what you'll do if you are in that situation. And if they're not doing the same thing that you would do in that situation, offer that as a solution, if that is a bargaining sort of a point. So these are that comes that quite naturally. Initially, you have to force yourself to think, but then once you do it repeatedly, it's all about you become what you do repeatedly, and it is as so you'll have to do it initially consciously, you'll have to do it deliberately. But if you're at it, I think your mind and your brain gets attuned to look at different sort of aspects, and then it comes naturally to you. The other way is most of the time there is always a challenge that is at you, and it the reason why I'm telling this, it's not directly connected to looking at yourself as a self as instrument, but then indirectly the brain gets attuned to certain thinking. I always look at if there is a certain problem, and then you keep doing the same thing repeatedly, there is not going to be I'm a great believer of hard work, but I think somewhere when the repeated hard work does not yield, it is important to change your perspective and then look at a thing at a different perspective. So what in all I would say is, I reflect a lot about a situation. Many times, I do prepare a lot. People look like it appears, or it should appear as if it is an extempo. But then what people may not know is there are a lot of reflection and thinking before you say. It's not that I am saying that it goes everything as per plan, or not everything is that you're able to absorb everything and not show emotions or so. I think that's not then you won't be authentic. It is possible that at times that things don't go as you had sort of planned. So I would say that one thing that I do a lot, if you want to be coming, if you want to get a precise answer, I think is reflection. Even in things that has gone right, I would still reflect: is there still a better way to do that? Just because something has yielded result does not mean that it is still the best thing. And second thing is also feedback, and having been in the same organization, and having a stable team also, you give that space for a very honest feedback. And at least there are 3-4 people who will absorb what I say at that point of time. But then I get a feedback, especially if it's not, it's a great behavior that I have shown. I'm sure to get a feedback by the end of the day. At least there are 3 or 4 people who have the space, and then who are genuinely interested in my growth as well, and who give me that feedback very honestly. And that you need to consider that, because there are no perfect way or no single way of perfection. There are people are having multiple emotions. We need to understand that.
Wonderful. And Balaji, I'm curious that this feedback is from your peers or your team members?
No, it's from my team members.
Wonderful. So that talks a lot about the culture of the organization as well, right? And
Right.
I'm so resonating with what you said, Balaji, here, with what Vinita said in the chat box, which is about paradox. So what you're constantly doing is practicing and doing few things, but also not being just saying that my way or highway, but also reading the room to say that what needs to change, reflecting to see what needs to change. So while you have your plans, while you have your strategy, but you're also reading the room to make the changes accordingly, which is amazing, right? So in all that you said, I mean, this is what I'm just picking as the biggest takeaway, that you're working on yourself.
Absolutely. I think, my way, or I think those days are, and very frankly speaking, getting that counsel is extremely important for a leader. It's just not, and I know where my strengths are. And one of my key strengths is ability to get a good counsel. That's what I would say. There are people who are good in the business. There are people who understand the if it's an HR, the policies of the company. You might think that you know it all, but it's just not so. I think finally it's your decision, it's your call, but then it is also I think equally important that you take that right counsel. In every organization there are places, and especially from a team on ground that does the job. I think that's the best place to seek for some of the problems as well, Smita.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Balaji. Very, very valuable inputs. Nanda, would you like to share?
Yep. On similar lines, my thoughts are pretty similar to what Balaji was mentioning as well. And I'm the one who hold a strong belief that honesty and self-awareness in leadership is never accidental. It's built through deliberate practice. And again, my belief is very often this is built, the honesty and self-awareness, again through coaching for me, right? And my self-awareness didn't just come overnight or didn't come from insight alone. It came from a lot of discomfort and of course a lot of reflection. And early on I realized that how I intended to show up as a leader was not how always I was experienced as well. Like what Balaji was mentioning, that we would have done something and then we would get the feedback immediately, because how we show up as a leader may be experienced differently by others. And as in when you move up in the hierarchy in the organization, you become a table topic, right? Anybody can pick up that shit about you and then they can start talking about, right? And the way you intend to show up and the way you're perceived is completely different. So what helped me definitely was deliberate practice, seeking that honest feedback, and especially the feedback when it was uncomfortable, and pausing to reflect on that particular feedback rather than explaining it all the way, that, oh no, this is not what I meant, your feedback is right, but then you go into that explanation mode. All that I had to do was pause there and say that, okay, you're giving me a feedback, and trust me, it takes a lot of courage to give feedback to somebody, right? And over time, 3 habits that I have developed for myself, or for my self-awareness, was definitely feedback. The first one, which I didn't control, it came from all the angles, from peers, from teams, from my senior leaders, from the direct reporting manager, from my customers. right? And everything is good for me. What I have to work on it is something which I will choose, but feedbacks are always welcome. So that was one practice or one insight that I gained, and started noticing. The second one was on the patterns, you know, and not the incidents. What is the pattern that is coming for me? Asking
Mm,
myself that, when does this keep showing up for me? How should I improve myself rather than how should I prove myself or prove that the other person is wrong? Right. So that's the pattern which I started looking at. And then the last one was on reflection in action. You have feedback, you know the patterns, and it's not just right after the events, but it's noticing yourself as and when you lead. Right. Self
mhm,
awareness grew when I stopped trying to be a better leader and started trying to be a more deliberate, uh, honest observer of myself. You know, and that shift from self improvement to self understanding, which has made a huge difference for me in bringing this, self awareness, developing the self awareness about myself.
mhm. Okay, so this is, it really based on your sharing and Balaji's, it is really about the choices that you're making in terms of deliberation, reflection, listening to others in terms of feedback, then revisiting your own patterns and then making those changes. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your experience. Very interesting comment here by Arun on the chat. It says, when we say self as an instrument in whose hands? Balaji, would you like to respond to this?
I'll probably allow Nanda to do that, then probably come up
Okay.
just to make sure.
I read that comment actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Arun, for putting that. For me, self as an instrument in whose hands we're talking about self. So it's, at least for me, it's in my hands, right? I am the
Yeah.
instrument who I am showing up as a leader every day in, every day out. And for me, again, leadership does not mean that you should be an instrument to lead a team, but you are your own personal leader, right? Where we say that there are result leaders, there are thought leaders, there are personal leaders. Then you, as a personal leader, then you are the instrument. Then the instrument is in your hand, and that's why we're talking about self-awareness and being more in control, showing up every day as a person who is self-aware. And again, going back to the point that I mentioned earlier, instead of proving every day, try to improve. So instrument for me is in my hand.
Yeah. That's a wonderful catch line, Nanda. Instead of proving every day, improve. So thank you. Balaji, any comments from you?
No, I think Nanda and I just echo what he said. The instrument is finally is in your hands, or
Yes.
the whole idea is to take control and keep it in your hands rather than you being allowed to work or dance to the tunes of others. I would say, and it's not just important for leaders. I mean, I would want to qualify that. I think each one of us in the individual capacity, not only in the professional life, it's also applicable for our sort of a personal life, as well. How do we reflect? Are we, acting, or are we reacting? How do we behave with our, children or spouses or relatives? I think this is applicable everywhere. There's a lot to reflect, and it's so absolutely okay if you're not able to do that as well. But then I think somewhere you'll have to keep this, at the back of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's applicable in all roles. We're not just talking about leadership, and it's not really about doing, it's really about the awareness, which is
Yeah.
the start point of anything. Just few minutes left, but I want to really segue into that part, which is about we spoke about almost 30-40 minutes in the conversation. We're talking about us self as an instrument, right? And all that we do to sharpen the saw specifically in the space of leadership. Now, coming to when we're talking about self as an instrument, what is the impact of that on leadership? And it's not a new question. We've partly, Balaji, you and Nanda, you've touched upon that fact, saying it is about the trust. It is about, if I am congruent, people feel that way, and I pass that energy to the team, right? So I need to show up in a particular way. But what else, based on your practical experiences, stories, the leadership stories, what is the leadership impact of the work that you're doing on self? Anything as a case study or any story that you would like to share?
I did share one earlier that really sort of inspired me. But otherwise, in the role that we do, as I said, Smita, as you, I mean, again, probably I'm repeating, but then as you go up the ladder, your direct contribution to the result reduces in the same sort of a fashion. So now, and the only way that you can do is through people. But then, how do people have the perspective that you have? The perspective you have, how do you make it feel that is important for the others? There are one way is to say that the boss says and hence it is right, but then the other way, which I feel, which is more powerful, is if everybody feels the way that you would want to feel. How do you create such an atmosphere? So these are clear ways, and you can't do that unless you are able to reflect. I just got distracted with what Vinita just probably we'll get to that. So I feel there is much larger impact. You get the team to do automatically. It runs the whole organization runs completely aligned. Giving an instruction and getting things done, I would not say it will not work. It will work. Is it sustainable? No, it's definitely not sustainable. So how do you build a culture of a team? That's more important. Following the instruction cannot be the culture of the team. If you really want to build a culture, then I think it's important to look at these type of stuff. Reflect, and then you don't have to. And as I said, it's also about trust, and trust will not come without being authentic. It's not just coming up and then talk good English, talk something which is really philosophical, because people will see through it just like that. Probably once you might be able to stand up and then get this through in a meeting, but then, as I said, every day you walk into the office, there are eyes and on you. There are ears on you. It's extremely important to set that intent, talk that intent, and then walk the talk as well. And once it's just done, I think you don't even have to come on stage. People will automatically get connected, and there's a lot of predictability that comes. Once the predictability comes, naturally, I think we all talk about decentralization and then decision being taken at levels that it should be taken. But if you start challenging each of those decisions later on, then it falls apart. So it's also important about setting the expectation. Few things to be done in a certain fashion. Be sure about it, and then once your decisions are predictable, I think it falls into line. And all this cannot happen unless you have a good awareness about yourself, and that helps in, I would say, better connect with the team, Smita.
Mm-hmm. And I think sorry, Balaji.
I said I just passed the baton on to Nanda to ask if he has something to add or so.
Yes, and I want to just say that, in a way, with what you shared here in terms of authenticity and, trust, making the team self-reliant, right? Rather than you being directive, all of that, I think, answers Vinita's question about how do you keep yourself dispensable, right? In a way, with what you shared, I'm sure, Vinita, you uh, feel that, you've got the answer for that question.
Yeah, I think I would rather say that, it's not a cliche. I think if you're making yourself indispensable, then in lot many ways, you're also holding on to your growth as well. I think contrary to making yourself indispensable, I would say that you should make yourself as quickly as possible dispensable. Uh, and then, that's the way, I worked in a public sector organization before coming and working in my initial days were in public sector, and one of the key aspect was keeping the knowledge with yourself. And then people used to say that if there's a problem, people should come and call me, and then I'll go and solve. And when those organizations, when I was there, fortunately I did not follow that. And then people used to ask me, you will make yourself indispensable if you're going to share your information. I always used to tell them that I really want to equalize my knowledge, and once I've equalized my knowledge, there is an even more thirst to learn more, and then be one step ahead, again share knowledge, and then be one step more. I think the whole process of learning, sharing, I think your own growth comes out of it. I'm a strong believer in it. I've seen that happen to me. I've seen probably more technically qualified managers who have not risen to what I would have come today. There are a lot of people who are much more technically qualified, but I think they did not realize their potential, I would say, Smita.
Thank you, Nanda.
I think we have 3 minutes. I'll try and wrap up quickly.
Yes.
I am just going to talk about the example.
Sorry, you know me very well. If you have me and allow me to talk, I will talk.
That's
No,
absolutely okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
yes, and that's absolutely okay and inspirational, Balaji.
Yes.
Thanks for that. But for me, I'll just stick to the example because Balaji has definitely deliberated a lot of things over here. But for me, I'll talk only about my current organization's experiences. What you said, Smita, 10 years with the current organization, where I started as the lead for compensation and benefits, where I had around 20 people reporting into me across the AMEA region, right? And then going back uh, from the dispensable standpoint, and of course the case study for me, where all of us romanticize the learning, romanticize the growth, the development, everything we want. But what are you going to do about it? It's your growth, it's your development, it's your learning. How are you going to own it, right? And that's something which I've been continuously working on myself when I was that lead for compensation and benefits. And then I said, this is done. What next for me? I have to move on so that I create space for others to come in. Then I took a demotion within the organization. I stepped down from the leadership role, and then I became an individual contributor in the learning space. Did that learning for around 6 years, and trust me, the farther I pulled the arrow, the further it went, right? And now I have seen 4 different roles, 4 different changes within my grade, within my job profile that I'm doing. And then I was like, I'm done now. What next? How can I be dispensable? Then train somebody else. We had a succession pipeline in the planning. And then I again took another demotion now. And then I moved as the global HR business partner, where I'm propelling again myself, where I know what I want, where I know where I have to deliberate myself, where I want to grow furthermore. If I have an aspiration, then how I need to align to that, right? And I become case study for myself, where these are some of the things that I have done. And by the way, I'm a chemical engineer, and this is something which Balaji usually tells me, and a couple of his team members as well. Chemical engineer, what are you doing in HR? Come and join my team. We are energy industries, right? But then that's not where I want to be. My aspiration is different, and how am I aligning myself over there? Becoming indispensable for myself, allowing my team to grow, at the same time knowing about yourself as to where do you want to move ahead, right? So this is one example for you and for the rest of the community which is over here, that know what you want first, and don't ask me how will I know that what I want. That's something which is left to you, that what do you want to do. Can be your career, can be your family, can be your hobby. What is that that you would want to do your pros and cons for yourself, write it down. If it helps, then you become your own advocate, and that becomes a case study for yourself. Then you propel yourself furthermore. So my 2 cents over, Smita. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Nanda, you've just, people are now leaving, as there is another one at 7:30.
Yeah.
But I would like to thank you so much, Balaji and Nanda, for all the, valuable inputs. Just one thing I would like to say as I wrap up, saying, organizations just do not transform by having great models and frameworks, but by having leaders like you who are constantly working on themselves and creating that impact on the larger ecosystem in the organization. So thank you so much for all your sharing, and thank you so much everyone for joining in and also participating. We were not able to answer everything here on the chat, but if there is anything, we will surely get back to you. Yeah.
No.
Thank you Balaji, thank you Nanda once again. See you.
Thank you, Smita, for involving. Thank you, Balaji.
Bye. Bye, Nanda.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.